And we are live. JT here. Welcome to The Huddle. The Huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you. I want to thank you whether you are tuning in live as we stream this conversation into our Facebook community, whether you are watching the replay on YouTube or on Facebook, or whether you're listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my friendly reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. So my challenge to you is to go all in on this conversation, to remove any potential distractions. And what I guarantee you is that you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sports, but in the game of life. I've been looking forward to my conversation with my special guests today. You know, we often have these great conversations, so I've been able to witness firsthand some of the amazing transformations and growth he's been going through the last few years. So I invited him on because, again, he's got lots of valuable wisdom and is achieving a lot of great things, both on and off the football field. My guest in the huddle today is University of Ottawa football alum. He is currently serving as the head coach of the U18 team in Cornwall. And, you know, he's an entrepreneur and, more importantly, just an amazing all-around human being. My guest in the huddle today is Coach Alex Labonté. How are you today, brother?
Thank you, JT, for these comments. Honestly, it's nice to hear. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thanks, brother. Well, hey, you know, again, we've had some great conversations, and you know, one thing that I often share is, you know, the importance of counting your blessings. And as we've talked about, it's a daily practice. Some days we do it better than others, and that's part of life. But I'm a firm believer that the biggest blessing we can really give anyone is giving someone our time and our energy. So I just want to thank you for choosing to invest some of your time and energy into being here with me and our community today, brother. And I'm really enthused for our conversation.
Well, no, the feeling's mutual, man. I mean, I like to talk about football, talk about, you know, getting to where you want to be. So it's great. It's great.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I often share is this idea of life is a game, and games are supposed to be fun. So I'm curious, you know, what is an interesting fact? You know, I had a coaching colleague, a great friend that used to say, we all have our quirks. We all have our things that make us different, that make us unique. I'm curious, what is a interesting fact, a quirk that maybe a lot of people don't know about you that you'd be open to sharing with our community?
I don't know. I mean, everybody in my circle, I mean, I think for the most part, know me as a football guy. I mean, I've been playing sports since I was wee little. I was a hockey player before I was a football guy, I guess. And I mean, I don't think people understand how much passion I have for hockey because obviously I got so much passion for football. So I think that's probably a core that not a lot of people know. I mean, my hockey buddies that are from my small little hometown, I mean, we're not a lot of people here. I mean, they're always amazed when they hear all these stories about football because football is not really a big thing in our hometown. And I mean, I think that's probably one of the things that surprises most people is how invested I was in hockey before football.
Okay. So it sounds like, right, and again, I've been able to observe that, you know, sports obviously has played an important role for you in your life, right? At first it was hockey, then you transitioned into football, and then, you know, you were blessed to be able to play and coach at a high level, multiple levels. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious from your perspective, what has been the biggest blessing of sport? Like, what is a life lesson that you found that you've received from sport that you still find yourself applying to your life today?
Honestly, football for me has always been present. I'll be honest with you. We're talking about hockey and how I transitioned to football. When I was, in the biggest moments of your life, when you start driving, when you start making decisions about school, all that stuff, football's always been there. And we saw the NFL draft last night. We saw a lot of guys having great opportunities because of football. That's what made it happen for them. And for me, football's opened so many doors. And the beautiful thing is I never really stopped being around football. You've got these athletes that sometimes, they call it quits and then, they hang up the cleats. And, there's this period where you got to transition where your life was all surrounded by football. And then you got to transition to a new reality or a new, moment. For me, the second I stopped playing football, actually, when I was in university, Kirby Camplin, our head coach of the Wildcats and our current organization president, says, no, even if you're playing, you're still coaching. So for me, I always had a venue to coach football. And as soon as I finished playing, I always kept on with coaching. So I'm 30 years old and I've got 21 years of football in me, and hopefully keep on growing, because I'll be honest with you, I find a lot of life lessons in football. And for me, it complements my life quite nicely. So.
Well, and again, you provide an interesting, reminder that, many athletes, right, especially high level athletes, they do transition once they're done playing into coaching. Now, I'm curious, you obviously have been surrounded by some great, coaches and mentors, right? Like Coach Camplin, like encouraging you to, come back and give back. I'm curious, what was the inspiration to get it there? You had to sort of take that idea and actually physically go coaching. What inspired you to actually go all in on coaching?
It's funny, but tomorrow our Cornwall Wildcats U18 team are going to be at my high school for a training camp. So that's Collège Beaujeu and Rigo. When I went to that school, you walk there today, you think it's a football city. Everything around that town is revolved around that high school, and it's all revolved around football. But for me, when I was at that school, it was the dirt field, and, we had to fight to get 24 guys on the roster. So since I was in there, the coaches that were there, they were teaching us how to recruit. They were teaching us how to coach. We had our best friends playing hockey, like, hey, stop playing hockey, come play football, So there's a lot of coaching that happened when we were growing up. And we were, of my grade, I think we were 12 football guys that started, first year and finished in the last year. All 12 of those guys, I'll be honest with you today, we still talk on a weekly basis. And it formed some great friendships. So obviously, transition from high school to CEGEP, because I went to CEGEP, it was the same thing. We as for the nucleus anyways of our group from high school, went to the same CEGEP, and it was a brand new CEGEP. It was Collège de Valleyfield de Noir-et-Or. Today you hear about them, they won a lot of championship, but when we got there, it was their first year, so it was pretty new. So we had to do the exact same thing. We were there, we were recruiting. Coach Pat Lozon was there, great values, but he brought us along for recruitment stuff. And, there was recruiting, there was coaching involved there, because we had to bring some younger guys, some newer guys to fill some roles. So there was coaching involved there. Then when I got to the University of Ottawa, I realized that it's a whole other level. And hey, you think you're a big fish, in a small pond, but you think the pond is actually smaller than what you think. So when you go into the other one, you realize, holy crap, I got to put in some work. Physically and mentally. So the second I started coaching for real, I realized, what, that's when I think myself personally, I elevated as a football player. I was able to see things from an outside perspective. And when I got on the field, it was a whole lot more clear for me. So it gave me, I feel that, a better advantage on the football field by coaching. So that's why I got into it in the first place.
Okay. So what I really heard from you again is the power of surrounding yourself with a strong and powerful team, right? And again, that speaks volumes about, the power of coaches and mentors. But one thing I sort of heard from you, and what it reminded me is you have actually been very blessed to be in some situations where you've been able to actually see culture being built right from the ground up, right? You've seen it. And now, based on our conversations, you're leading the charge in Cornwall, right? To create, a different culture coming out of these last interesting times. So I'm curious from you, what has all these situations of being able to be involved in culture building at high school, at CEGEP, right? At U of Ottawa, and now in the OSFL, what is all of this? What has it been like for you to be part of that?
for me, I think every single place I've been, there's been challenges, but I think we've always been surrounded by great leaders, and I've always had good people to look up to, these high school coaches I was telling you about, I still talk to them very often. I just came back from a Penn State trip with those guys, last weekend. So these guys are still surrounded. They're the ones making this happen for us, for the Cornwall Wildcats. I haven't been at that school for the last 12 years. And we're still communicating. We're still trying to build football. We're still trying to develop. So I've been really lucky to have great leaders there. And I went to CEGEP, and I mean, our head coach at CEGEP, I mean, he's a second dad to everyone that's been on that football team. So and then you go to Ottawa. Like out of Ottawa, I got 3 different head coaches, but they all had their great traits. And I've always been able to have people that have been able to look up, see results from what they're doing, and see what kind of impact they have on me at that point in time. And now obviously transitioning away from the football field where I'm playing to coaching. I mean, I have great guys I can look back from and say, okay, hey, I remember, being in this situation. I remember him always, shouldering me for such and such thing. So I've had great mentors, but I've had great examples, I think, in life. So.
Well, what I really heard from you again is one of your superpowers, right? Like, being able to work with you, I've definitely noticed how open-minded, how coachable you are. Right? Like you're open to like hearing new ideas. So I'm curious, that as we've talked about, that takes a certain level of calm and confidence in your own skin, right? Like, so from your perspective, again, I know player development, life development is a real important driver for you. How important has that been for you to be coachable so that you can actually help develop the young people you're attempting to?
I'm a newbie in coaching. I mean, I'm honestly fresh off the block. And I mean, in the last, I've been coaching for 10 years, but from the year 1 to year 10, I mean, the coaching style has drastically changed, and it doesn't change always, normally it transitions from different, groups of people. My first year, I had a very big leadership group in our team at Cornwall. And, 2 years after that, we were all freshmen. And then I coach also in high school, and I coach also in CEGEP. So, I mean, there's different age groups. I've always been able to be adaptable, but what I realize is you never really have one formula until you really analyze your players, understand what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you need, is to be adaptable and to be able to, notice what you need to work on and, what you need to promote, because obviously every single athlete, every single team has obviously going to have some strengths. So that's your job as a coach, to make sure they're at the forefront, but then you also have to keep an eye on the weaknesses of those teams are. So, I mean, you got to be adaptable. I mean, your weaknesses won't always be the same thing year in, year out. So you can't go into every season always expecting the same, situation, because guess what? It's going to be a big surprise for you. It's not going to be the case. So,
it's interesting. And what I really heard from you again was the importance of like being open, right? Like understanding that, whether we're talking about leading people on the football field or as you do, professionally leading it, in your business, it's really assessing, what are the gifts, the talents, the abilities, aka the strengths of the people I'm leading? What are maybe the areas that they need some support in or to grow in? And then crafting the game plan based on that, right? As opposed to just trying to, force a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. And I think that's a common mistake that happens quite often. I get caught in that as well too, right? We have what we were very comfortable with, and sometimes we try to, impose, but sometimes, well, I've learned you can't impose anything to anyone. I mean, these days there's too many options around, there's too many things. All you need to really do is you really need to just motivate them and push them in the right direction, and then you control that, you let them go, and then you stay in the background and you take care of that. It's weird, but I have this employee that works here at the dealership. I've been working with them since I was actually I started washing cars at the car dealership where I work. I was working there when I was 9 years old, and this guy was a veteran at that time. And now I'm, managing the dealership, and he's, he's doing the same thing. He always brings this up. I'm like, hey, Angus, like, how in the hell do you keep everybody in check? I mean, obviously, he shows me a picture of a wolf pack, and he's like, I'm the one in the back, I'm the one making sure everybody's doing their stuff. I may not walk as fast as everybody else, may not be, at least I keep everybody, in line. And realistically, that's what I've learned to do a little bit as well, too. I mean, you surround yourself by great people, like you said. I think you need to step back sometimes and just take a peek at the pack and figure out which direction they're going in. If they're going the right direction, there's no need to impose. You just let it be, and obviously if the pack goes in the wrong direction, well, well, then that's when you step in, you take, your past experiences and you tell them, well, not tell them, but try to redirect a little bit. So no, I think that that's the thing. I think sometimes we have a preconceived idea and we can't really be like that. I think it's important to be proactive, but obviously sometimes people are too stuck in a very narrow-minded way of looking at things. And sometimes you just need to be open and just let things go, and then you just control as they go.
Yeah, no, I love that idea, right? And as you were sharing that, like I could see this ability. It's like walking towards that uncertainty, right? It's like understanding that you don't need to know all the answers. You just have to trust that through taking one courageous action, it's going to lead you somewhere, right? It's going to lead you in the direction of growth. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious again. I've been able to observe you grow as a leader. What would you say has been the biggest shift for you, in your transition as a leader? Like, what is the one thing that you feel that you are doing now that maybe you weren't doing, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
Kirby Camplin, I'll mention his name very, very often because he's been around me in the most important times of my life, whether it was on or off the field, And one thing he told me is that he asked me to be the head coach of this team 3 years ago. This was before the pandemic. And, there was a lot of reasons behind it, and then I was kind of scared a little bit, I don't, he said, Alex, you're going to be all right. Like, all the reasons why I would have been, a little bit timid towards that. He's like, no, you're going to do it. You're going to be fine. Don't worry. Just go with the flow. And what I've realized, and Kirby was 100% right. He always surrounded himself by good coaches. He always made sure that, I was around, if there's other coaches around, he always made sure that he was well surrounded. And that's what he did. He stepped back. He let us do what we had to do. And success always came of it. And the second, I was being a little, how could I say that, a little bit difficult, or I was, being out of line or whatever, that's when, the Kirby hand came around the back, grabbed you, pulled you back and put you back in place. And like even today, like whenever I accepted this role, he was not going to be in the picture whatsoever. Then COVID hit a little bit, then we have a lot more uncertainties. I'm like, Kirby, you definitely need to be back with me. So he's my OC now. I convinced him to do that. How he found time to do it, I have no idea. But anyways, he's doing it right now. And even today, I'm like, you know what? I look at him and says, I'm glad I followed in your footstep by creating a good staff and making sure we had a bunch of good people around us, because you know what? I don't need to worry. I understand why you were so always calm and cool, collected, because you know what? You made sure you were surrounded by the right people. And I think that's what I had to learn myself too, is I always did the stuff by myself, When Kirby made me the special team coordinator, I was all by myself. I'd get insulted when Kirby would move players around. I'd be like, no, why? And they'd be like, this is why, because this, and I was always, focused on my own stuff, but I grew a little bit and I realized that you need to you can't do everything yourself. If you do, well, you know what, you're going to sell yourself short at one point. If you surround yourself by good people and you work in the same goal in the same direction, your results will be 10 times better than if you do it by yourself. So and that was hard for me at first. So
what I really heard from you, and again, I can appreciate how you feel. That's something I've had to work on, right, through my growth is again, growing up, I was blessed that, having two working parents, sort of forced me to like figure things out on myself. But the other side of the coin was that it forced me to like almost put too much, like I have to do it all myself. And like you, what I've realized is, as I have become more open to actually being coached in the game of life the last few years, it's interesting how that being able to trust others has given me the ability to trust myself more. And that trust then has allowed me to actually create greater results.
No, 100%. I'm an only child. I don't have any siblings, right? So growing up, I'm from a small town where my closest neighbor, my mom still lives in that house today. I'm lucky to still have a room there. But anyways, if you want to go back a few years, like I was living in a small town of Banesville, Ontario. My closest neighbor was 3 kilometers away. Yeah. I had to entertain myself by myself, and the thing is, when it came to playing sports, that's why I loved it so much, because I get to meet more people. But I've been conditioned to being able to operate, being independent, do my own stuff whenever, I'm in my dealership and at the car dealership, there's not that many employees for each department. So I'm by myself when I first started my own department. But no, I grew up in a situation where I had to be independent. I had to be able to, find my own answers, do my own stuff. And then as you grow older and those are your habits and those are your tendencies, the power of the team is not something you realize right away. And I mean, working with you, with the high performance committee and looking at how so many different voices can come together and create a good product, that was a big testament to opening up a little bit. I mean, as a coordinator, as a defensive coordinator for the Wildcats, for example, or as a positional coach anywhere you've had to be, you're by yourself a little bit. For me to be in a head coach position now, it's like, man, now I've got like 6 positional coaches to kind of listen to, and I got 3 coordinators. And that was very, very unique and very unique. And I think you saw it. Like, I mean, in the dealership spectrum, I've changed jobs over the course of being a department manager to being a general manager now. So now I'm overseeing a lot of, coordinators in my personal life and also in the football life. So the last few years have been definitely a big change for sure. So I definitely had to work on that team skill. So.
Yeah, it's been interesting, right? Like hearing you share that, it's just, it's reminding me to like reflect back on your journey that I've been able to observe, right? Working with you. And what I've really noticed from you is there's been this shift, right? Where you've empowered those around you, right? Professionally at the dealership, right? With the coaching staff, with the players. So, and, even in your personal relationship, it's been really cool to see, empowerment, you empower others. So I'm curious from you, in the last half year, what has it been like to become a more effective leader because you're empowering those around you? What has been the biggest benefit?
One of the things I was stressed out by, delegating a little bit. Like, we have one of the most awesome defensive coordinators in this U18 league, and this is Phil Roberts, Coach Roberts, from Concordia, Queens, and Ottawa U. I was able to reach out to him and be like, hey, listen, man, I know I changed your seasonal tires and whatnot, but hey, can I convince you to do it for free if you come coach the Wildcats? And he came along, and he's there. And for example, like he's got his own playbook. This guy's got I think 75 years of experience. I'm kidding there, Phil, if you're listening, but he's got lots of experience and he's got his own playbook. And for me, I've been the defensive coordinator for the last 7 years, and I have my own playbook, right? We play different fronts. And, the biggest challenge for me was, hey, Phil, do you want to look at my playbook? I honestly, Phil's gonna be the first one to say he hasn't seen my playbook whatsoever because I gave him a clean slate. For me, that was the hardest thing to do, is to kind of delegate. I think delegation is something that I was always scared of because I always felt that if I had to, give Phil the duty of doing the playbook, I was always overlooking it, seeing what's going on, what's not going on. But sometimes, just trusting that your team around is going to do a great thing. We're going to be all right. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I barely even know my defensive playbook at this point. I mean, Phil's going way too fast for me. And it's like, wow, it's great. I can't believe where we are with our U18 team.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Kirby. Like I said to him first thing when we started the season, I said, I need to learn offense. Kirby, you need to teach me. Well, realistically, look, we're into 3 months of off-season work. I haven't been even able to step foot in any of his offensive meetings yet. So anyways, the power of delegating was something that I definitely had to work on. And it was definitely something, the best thing that could ever happen. And the results were that now I got a bunch of free time to talk to our team managers and figure out what we need to do to make sure the season's successful, So no, honestly, that was definitely the biggest thing. Start using the power of team, and basically, it's definitely elevated me in a sense that I'm able to step back, still kind of oversee what I need to oversee, but then create more opportunities for everybody around the organization. So it enables us to have more time and obviously more opportunities.
Well, I love everything you're sharing there, right? And you talked about this idea of, our most precious gift is time, right? And it's been amazing to see you sort of buy back your time and your energy, both again, personally, professionally, right? And coaching wise. So it's been great. I also love that the byproduct has been you're actually providing more opportunities, right? For other coaches, for players, people at the dealership. So I'm curious, what have you learned through that process, right? Because opportunity is something that people talk a lot about. I guess the question I have from you, from your experience, what have you learned about what is actually the most effective way to actually empower people?
I think it's the same thing it's a personal thing, right? I think we're all scared to do something that's, something that we're not used to doing, something that's not a regular tasks. I mean, having to work with the person that replaced me at the dealership, for example, that was something we promoted somebody from within. And then for that person, it was not scary, but obviously it's not a part of his normal routine. So when you're going on the unknown, people are scared a little bit. Sometimes you're giving that little extra push. Sometimes you say, hey, go ahead and do it, and it creates, they feel supported in a sense, but they also kind of see, it's like when we were a kid and we're being told their parents, oh, eat your broccoli. No, I don't want to eat it. The second you eat it, like, oh, it's not that bad, So it's the same exact thing in a job. And I mean, it's the same exact thing for coaches. I mean, I think our coaching staff that we have for the Wildcats this year anyways, is an amalgamation of a lot of different people that I've met over the course of my life. And they're all from different areas. And when they came in together, they weren't even sure like how they would work together. And I just said, figure it out. And then these guys, I'll be honest with you, they're inseparable now. It's a great thing. So what I think my goal and what I think we need to do in this situation is obviously always don't be afraid of the unknown. The unknown will always create opportunities. And you know what, if you don't do anything, you don't do mistakes, but if you do things, you might do some mistakes, but you'll do some great stuff as well too. So I'm there for that. I mean, in a practice plan, and whenever I review my practices, and that's something that I learned a little bit from you is there's mistakes and they're going to happen. Don't overlook at the mistake, look at the good stuff and highlight the good stuff. And you know what, when there's so much good stuff, it doesn't matter how bad stuff there was, what overpowers it. And you know what, I think that's exactly what happened with our team this year, for example. I mean, we started the season with 80 people in the training for our training camp. And I tried to get rid of a bunch of people by making them not commit to football, putting the bar pretty high. Well, we're only down to 70 guys right now. So, I mean, we pushed them in the right direction. We said, hey, you guys, you want to commit, you want to be a AAA team, here you go, push you right in it. And then it's your opportunity. So, yeah.
I really heard two things from you there. Was one, what all great leaders do is they encourage, right? And again, encourage is, what is encourage, right? If you really break the word down, right? Obviously to create any sort of level of greatness in your life in any area, health, business, finances, football, right? You need to take courageous action. So encouraging is you're pouring your courage into other people, right? And it's that belief, right, that you instill in other people. And the funny part that you really talked about there, which is I think sometimes people forget that everyone experiences feelings of fear, right? It's like you said, it's anytime you're going somewhere you've never gone before. So I'm curious, what actually is there something that you do when you I mean, you've done the work on yourself. Like when you feel those feelings of fear come up, is there anything that you do that allows you to get through this, past the fear?
It's weird. I mean, I think Kirby's spouse and Phil's spouse are definitely the people that hate me the most these days. But we're talking about the power of team and the power of what we can do when we work together. And that's the thing. Whenever I fear, I reach out, like coaching plan, I mean, practice plans and whatnot. Sometimes like we're doing our first training camp. Well, actually it's not our first training camp. It's the 11th training camp for the Wildcats, but it's my first training camp realistically for me. So I'm a little bit, stressed out about it for tomorrow and whatnot. So I think I've called Kirby at 11 o'clock at night 5 times this week without even realizing the time of day. But you know what, that's what I do is I reach out to people that I know can help me. Yeah. And then that takes the fear away. Cause you always think you're the first one on the moon, but realistically there's always been somebody there before you. I mean, probably not the moon, but anyways, just to say that like what I'm going through right now, somebody else has at one point. And it's a question of, getting as much information, getting some feedback. And that's how I get rid of my fear. I mean, it happened to someone, it's going to happen to somebody else at some point too. You're not the only one. And that's what it is,
Yeah. I love the simplicity of that, right? Like the reframe, like reminding yourself of, hey, this is a normal human feeling. This is normal human emotion, right? It's just, you're going somewhere you've never gone. So that's like, I acknowledge you for having the mental discipline to reframe. 2, one of the other things that you're great at, and again, working with you, is you have a great way of surrounding yourself with a strong and powerful team, but you ask people with specialized knowledge. Where one of the things you and I have talked about is that everyone on this planet has been conditioned to seek out the approval of other people, right? Not good or bad, it's not positive or negative. That's just like a human trait, right? It was, we needed to seek out the approval of others to stay alive as cavemen and cavewomen. The challenge is today, many people are seeking out the approval of others through people's opinions. But you have this great understanding that no, when I am looking for context, when I'm looking for feedback, I'm going to people that have been there, done that are achieving the results I had. So here's a question for you. How important has that been for you in your life to be able to surround yourself with specialized knowledge, with people that have been there, done that, lived that?
That's a really personal question, actually, in a sense, because to be honest with you, I've always been me against the world mentality. I mean, I lost my dad when I was 11 years old, and my dad and I were best friends. You know, he was my hockey coach and everything, you know. And then I went to Collège Bourget, and we'll talk about them a lot throughout this podcast and throughout the whole rest of my life. But those guys, I went to a completely new town, completely new school. I was in a school that had maybe, you know, I had in my class, it was 2 grades together, grade like 5 and 6, and we were maybe 20 in that class. And then I go to a high school where there's maybe 200 people in the same class in the same grade. So I was scared shitless, sorry for my language, and then, you know what, people took me under their wings, and you know what, we're exactly almost 23 years later, and they're still right beside me. It's incredible, you know, and I've had the blessing of meeting some great people that cared a lot about me, and I cared about a lot about them. And I think that's what a relationship is, right? It's 2 different parties, you know, working in unison. And I think that's what made me, how can I say that? I mean, personally, that's what it is. It's all about personal relationships, and I value those relationships. I mean, Steph Trottier was the guy that organized this Penn State trip for us. Steph, you know, for example, I hadn't seen him in almost 3 years before we started organizing this stuff. But, you know, 3 years after, just starting a small conversation, and we created this opportunity. So I think it's important for us to value the past relationships and value the, you know, what has made you me. And obviously Bourget is something that made me, and obviously my Cégep and Ottawa U and everything I've done. And the people that have really not groomed me, but the people that have molded me into what I've become are important in my life. And obviously I want to keep them close. So, you know, I know they're going to be there tomorrow looking at our Cornwall Wildcats practice, and realistically they're 2.5 hours away from each other, and they still care, you know. And they're also, it's funny, in a time frame spectrum, they're also 15 years apart in my life, and they're still there present together. So it's kind of neat to really you know, look back and noticing how important and how can I say that, life-changing relationships can be.
You know, I love the simplicity of what you share for a reason. And I was thinking about this, that, you know, very similar to you, I have found that as soon as I build trust in someone, as soon as I feel like people generally have my best interests at heart, I've always been someone that I will run through a wall for you, because I know you care. And it was interesting that what you shared was, you look back to the people that have been an integral part of your journey. And what came up for me is, it's because they embody the same values that you want to see in your life. So it kind of just, that's why you've gone back to them. So I guess here's a question I have for you, is based on your experience, you know, you're very open to surrounding yourself with great people that have been a part of your life. How important has it been for you to surround yourself with people that share similar core values and core principles?
I think it naturally forms, to be honest with you. I think we all have our passions in life and whatnot. Yeah. And I think people that are like you will gravitate around you as well, too. The people that don't, obviously eventually found their way out of your social circle, in a sense. Yeah. You know, wherever I end up good coaching, obviously it's based off relationships that I've built in the past. And then whenever you kind of look at the places I've been, I mean, it just naturally forms. Everywhere I've been, you know, people have the common goal, and I've just been lucky to be in good areas. I mean, I can't say that I've been in a place where, I didn't feel at home. And then whenever you feel at home, it's because other people around you feel at home as well too. And that's because guess what? You've got a common, denominator. And I think that that's the most important thing for me as a coach this year, for example. I had to make some really tough decisions, unfortunately. And that was based off of that, because I've known in the past, you have to have a family feel. And if you don't have that, well, you know what, that's when issues kind of arise. You need to have a situation or an environment that's comfortable for everyone. And then, like you said, people will more naturally gravitate and stay in that family, right? So that's something that's crazy important for me, because everywhere I've gone, it's always been a family, right? So
a great reminder on the law of vibration, right? That you always bring into your life the people that you're meant to. As you start to grow your awareness, right? People sometimes will leave, and that's okay too. But like you said, you naturally gravitate to like minds attract like minds, right? So if you're someone who sees gratitude and blessings in life, you'll find people that, seek out, gratitude and blessings. If you are someone who likes to complain a lot, you'll find other complainers to surround yourself with, right?
that's true. Yeah.
Okay. So what has it been like? I'm curious, and just sort of reflecting on it, you coming out of this last 2.5 years, right? It's been really cool to see you create this vision for what you want to, what you're helping to grow in Cornwall. And then, I don't know, you've also done a lot of work around getting clear on the values at which the foundation of the program is going to be built on. What has it been like for you to really take it and make it your own?
I cheated, to be honest with you, 3 years ago when Kirby asked me to be the head coach. I kind of had it. He kind of told me at the beginning of the season of our last season, right? He kind of said it to me, and I kind of knew that. So the way I was going about the season was a lot about player development for mine the year after, right? Yeah. And then there's guys on that team, and I mean, I really put a lot of effort into it. A guy would have, I got to mention, is Joe DiStefano and Jeremy Latour, for example. They were the rookies on the team, and they got every single opportunity on the field because I want to make sure these guys were studs for the year after, Yeah. And then COVID hit. And then guess what? I ended up with all the work I had put in behind the scenes to make sure I'd be successful for my first year of head coach completely go out the window. So whenever we got back going in January of 2022, well, guess what? The player pool that we had were people that I had no idea who they were. There was 2 years removed of the athletes I had coached. So I had no understanding of who anybody was. So I was like, well, you know what? Unfortunately, all the work that Kirby put into the team to make sure the cultures align, all the player development that I put in line, well, it's all out the window. So start from scratch. So what do I believe in? These core values. I believe a lot into strength and conditioning. I mean, football is a very, physical sport. It's a very demanding sport mentally and physically. And if you have to be on the field and you have to work and you have to worry about your physical and your mental, you're probably not going to succeed. So for me, it was a lot about physical, strength and conditioning. That's how we got in contact with Coach Benson from Brockville. And I mean, we got him in. So that was an integral part of our program, is making sure the guys, were committed in the off season. I mean, it's pretty hard to stay motivated, going and running plays for 3 months. And then, after a while, you kind of just get discouraged. So we started with that, Coach Zach came in, made sure these guys were in shape. We transitioned into more football. And, we kind of made sure these guys were always focused on the goal. And then we always made sure they had a sense of direction. And then gradually, as you go, you just kind of, people are they're all walking in the same direction. We're all doing the same thing. When you see a straggler, you push them back in. So the culture was very simple. I mean, you actually introduce yourself to the team pretty early on, and the first thing that you mentioned was, guys, are you all in? And it was kind of odd that you mentioned that, because it vibrated with the first thing that we had discussed as a team. We had mentioned that if you're going to be part of this team, it's because you're committed, right? Being all in, be committed is the exact same thing. And we told them, it says, if you're going to be here now, if you start something, we want you to finish. Our job is to make sure you finish what you started. So what we've done is just progressively go into our culture thing. Obviously now, in my mind, these players don't really know it, because I'm trying to give them a big picture of things. But we're into our last phase of our training camp, where we asked them to be committed, and they did. And then we asked them to sacrifice to make sure that they get better on the field, and they did. Now we're into our last pillar of our culture teaching into our program, and now it's all about excellence. And I mean, it's kind of nice to see that we've got 70 guys still fully committed, sacrificing everything to be on the football field. And then this weekend, guess what? We are going to have our first red and gray game that we have. Everybody is going to be able to hit the field and be able to put their product on the field. It's going to be one of the most exciting moments for these guys because they've been 2 years removed from football for the most part. I mean, some guys had the luxury of playing for you guys, Team Ontario, and also their high schools, but a lot of them, the majority, haven't been able to step on the field. So tomorrow for us is going to be the amalgamation of everything we've done and basically just promote excellence at this point in time. And guess what? The culture established itself naturally, and by themselves. So
yeah, it's really awesome to hear you. Like, I can feel your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion, right? It's for tomorrow coming out. And that's the one thing I love whenever you have something like an event coming up, because I see you get juiced up, which is always great. Yeah. The one thing I've really heard from you again is, like every high performer, you have this harmony between being goal-oriented, but being process-driven. So I'm curious from your perspective, right? Either as an entrepreneur, a coach, just that, has it always been easy for you to be so process driven, or have you had to do work to really better understand what that being process driven means?
I hope my mom's not gonna listen to this, because she definitely knows that I'm not process oriented whatsoever. I've got goals. I got big goals, big aspiration. I've only very recently realized that there's processes to everything, right? But no, that's definitely something that I got to be pretty open with. I got big ideas. I got big plans. And sometimes, if you don't have processes, you deviate away from that. I mean, that's something I've realized, and I've had to force myself to have processes, to have steps, certain things to keep myself, oriented towards the right goal. So yeah. I definitely do realize that processes are crazy important, because I think that's your evaluation. That's where you evaluate where you're at, where you need to work on, and kind of in that. And I think that's where, we were talking about, leadership and team and delegating and whatnot. Well, when you take a step back, this is when you can realize what you need to work on. That's when you build your processes. I think people are sometimes too much invested emotionally, and then that's when they don't take a step back to realize where they're at. And that's when they lose their process, because they're so goal driven, which is a great thing. But then again, you got to understand that everything comes at a time and place, right? So
yeah. And it's funny, like, you just reminded me of that idea that, the goal is a byproduct of being in the process, right? Like it's simply law of cause and effect, right? If you are consistently focused on the process, the results take care of itself, as cliche as that is.
No, but it's cliche, but it's 100% true.
So one of the things that I've definitely come to appreciate about you is you have disciplined your mind to really to count your blessings. Like, it's really been a cool process to see you, like seeing you all jazzed up about tomorrow is just, hey, it's another step in the journey. What has that process been like for you? Because I know for myself personally, I found prior to really doing the work on myself that, there were areas of my life where I was kind of negative. I wasn't very fun to be around, but then I've learned how to sort of train and discipline my mind to count the blessings, to really. So what has that, been like for you to be able to sort of train and celebrate the wins along the journey?
Well, again, I'm going back to Collège Bourget, where we're going tomorrow, but that for me is definitely a big thing. Like, we were talking about surrounding yourself with great people, and surround yourself by people that are going to look after you. I was talking about Steph, and I can talk about all these coaches from Bourget. They're all going to be there tomorrow as well, too, because it's actually a high school reunion at the same time. But for me is that there's guys like Coach Eric, we call him Coach Booger, but Booger beat me up more often than not physically. He didn't touch me anything like that, but he definitely put me back in my place a lot of times. He he used to call me, like, I used to be a little, like you said, we all had our little things. He used to call me the practice All-American because I would go all out sometimes in practice, but then when it came game day, you're like, where are you? Hey, you want to be the star in practice, so those guys put me back in my place. And the thing is, what I'm really proud of is the way they coached me up is always making sure that, I was the best I could be. But obviously, they didn't see all the byproduct of that later on. Now they're noticing it a whole lot. Me going to Wildcats, for example, it's not an environment they're around. They're not seeing that. Obviously, with time, going on, these guys are getting closer and closer to our area, and obviously football is expanding, so we're collaborating a whole lot more. But for me, it's just a question of pride. Tomorrow, I'm going there with, everything they've shown me, everything that Sejep has shown me, everything that, Kirby has shown me, everything that Ottawa U shown me. And the thing is, now we're going to go put this product on the field, and guess what? There's going to be my high school friends that are there watching it because there's a high school reunion. There's my football coaches there because they want to recruit. And there's the university coaches. They're going to be there to recruit as well, too. So for me, it's just like, hey, thank you for everything. I was able to really get myself in a good position. And hey, this is a product not only of what myself, the coaching staff for the Wildcats have done, but for everyone that's going to be there. So it's kind of nice. For me, tomorrow is going to be a very big highlight. I mean, big moment.
It's interesting. Like what I heard from you, it's like tomorrow's like a celebration, right? It's about creating, like, it's a win-win-win, like for everyone. It's literally a celebration of life, right? And just how amazing it can be when, I don't know, you're doing what you love, right? And you're helping and serving others and helping them along their journey. And just, that's what I really heard from you there.
Well, I'm glad that's what you heard, because that's exactly the feeling. Sometimes it's hard to express feelings. So yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious, again, one of the interesting things about you is, management. I firmly believe management coaching is the development of people, right? Like it's helping people get to where they want to go faster with greater ease. You have a unique perspective because you lead people professionally at the dealership in your business. You also lead people, in football, right? Both coaches and athletes. Is there really a difference between, like, do you find like the principles in leading people are really that different?
I don't think so. At the end of the day, I used to think there's a big difference. There isn't at all. We were speaking originally about fear, right? A lot of people, when things, it's a routine. That's when we lose focus a little bit on what our goals are. How we want to realign is, we want to push them to elevate. And whenever we push them a little bit to elevate, it's unknown. There's fears there. I think it's all about, the power of what's up here, and the power of, making sure that you have the right mindset. At the dealership, it's just a question of mindset. When we're focused and we're oriented towards our goal, everything's going fine. The same thing on a football field, the same thing in my personal relationship with, my fiance or my family. It's always about a mindset. So it's just a question of making sure that, you just promote the good and you work on the bad if it needs to be addressed. And sometimes just being accepting of the fact that nothing's going to be perfect, that there is going to be some imperfection in everything. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be the end of the world. Yeah, I already know that my quarterback Xavier is going to throw a pick tomorrow, so I mean, I'm already ready for that.
It's interesting. What I really heard from you again, I know I've shared this with you, success in the game of life, it's 95% mindset, 5% strategy, right? And I think very often, people have been led to believe it's the other way. It's 95% strategy, 5% mindset, but really it's like, once you take care of up here and this, you create order here, as because you're doing the work, the results take care of themselves.
100%.
Okay. So brother, I got one last question for you. I would be respectful of your time. What my purpose is, right? My purpose is to show people what's possible when they go all in, when they truly bet on themselves. So I'm curious, we're having this conversation a year from now, 2 years from now, 5, 10 years from now, whatever time frame you want to look at, what is one thing you would like to see happen that would just, fill your heart with joy, brother?
Every single coach I've had in the past have all taken a step back from coaching at some point and have followed me, my friends, the people they've touched very closely in their football journey, right? Phil Mallette, Steve Landry, all these guys have been a big part of our life. And I know that at one point, whenever we finished either high school and went on to CEGEP or from CEGEP to university, they've taken a step back to come and see us play, right? And every single time a game will be done, you know, you want to go say hi to mom and hi to the girlfriend, but then you're running right to them and you're looking up to them like, hey, are you proud of what I've done today and all that stuff? And then that's what I'm really looking forward to as well too. I mean, this is a summer league, so obviously we're gonna be done in August, and I'm looking really forward in a year from now, seeing the progression my players have had, seeing how they've applied what they learned this summer. And for me, it's going to be very fast because a lot of these guys, a lot of these leaders on our team right now are actually I've already committed to programs in the fall. I'm really looking forward to going around all these programs, seeing these guys on the football field. We have been able to give these guys a really good preview of what, you know, high performance football is all about, how to take it seriously, you know, all the skill set they need for the university level. So I'm really looking forward to looking at that. And I know for a fact that all these guys are ready for it. I really do. I've never, like, the Wildcats, I've never, like, how can I say that? It's always been been very successful, but we're at a level right now that I think that these guys are going to really take a lot of great life lessons. I've taken great life lessons, so I'm happy that they're going to have the same thing too. So that's what I'm really going to be looking forward to, is seeing how they apply it in their real life and seeing how far they can go with it. And I know they're all going to go far. I know already that, you know, we have a leadership group of 20 guys on our team. We can't kick anybody out. We can't kick, and there's maybe 5 or 6 guys that need to be on this group. And you know what, at some point that we want to make sure the voice is limited. But I know that all these guys will be going into their programs. You got guys going to Windsor, Waterloo, Queens, Ottawa U, you know, everywhere. And they're all going to be difference makers just because of the attitude that they bring. So.
I love that. And, you know, it's interesting, you know, what I heard from you is, you know, good leaders hope that the people they're leading get to their next level, right? Whatever that is an area, but transformational leaders like yourself, they know that they're training their people to get to their next level, right? Like they're going to get there. It's just a question of, you know, when, right? So that's what that really reminded me of. So I'm curious, brother, you know, if anyone has any questions or, you know, just loves something they've heard today, is there a way to where people can follow your journey or connect with you, or, hey, maybe even learn, maybe they want to get a new car or something like that?
Hey, I'm at Roy Chevrolet, guys. I work so many hours. You can see me whenever you want. I mean, I think that the coaching staff right now have realized that the best way to get a hold of me is to come and get an oil change done or get, you know, something done on their vehicle. So by all means, we're open 8 to 7 most days. So guys, come on down. We don't have cars in the lot, so you can't buy anything. So come on down for service. I mean, that's one thing. I'm on social media a lot. And I mean, my life, my personal life and football life is intertwined. So, I mean, my social medias are, if you want to follow me, go on that. I mean, you'll see the personal side of my life and you'll see the football side of my life. It's who I am. I live on my phone, unfortunately, and I cannot answer anyone. So if there's anything that they want to know or they ask, or if they want to be a part of the journey, hey, we're on the football field at Collège Bourget. If you're the Junior Gales, or the Cumberland Panthers, the Myers Riders that are going to be playing against me, come on down, man. I have no issues with that. Come and see what we're doing and come and have fun. I think we're in for a great season. I think one of the reasons why we're going to have a great season also, I mentioned these programs, because we have a great rivalry and a healthy rivalry. So it's going to be fun. And then every time that you guys see the Wildcats in your hometown, come on down, come and see us. So you guys can definitely come and talk to us. At me, anybody in the coaching staff, everybody's awesome. There's some guys that have gone way further than me in football in that coaching staff. So by all means, I'm not the most interesting person there. So you have a big, how can I say that, big opportunity to talk football when you're surrounded by us. So
definitely. And I'll be sure to share all of the handles, all the different ways to connect in the description, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or the podcast. So Alex, I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge you. I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for the man you are, you know, the great fiance you are, the great, you know, teacher, coach, mentor, son, more importantly, the amazing human being you are. Like, being able to see you like really bring your greatness to the surface, like seeing how committed you are to being all in every year of your life has been amazing. And I'm just so enthused to see where this adventure takes you. I know we're only scratching the surface, so I just know how many more blessings are coming your way, brother. So again, thank you for allowing me to be part of your life, and just thank you for sharing your journey with me.
Well, honestly, thank you for making this platform. I've watched many of the previous ones before. I've written notes down from a lot of your guests.
Yeah.
Honestly, thank you for doing this. There's a reason why the football community is strong, and it's because of you and what you're doing. So thank you for that.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
So here is my reminder to you. Alex dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom that not only apply to sports, but in the game of life. But as I remind you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates great results. So take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. And as I remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from this podcast is for you to share this. If this conversation resonated with you, share this conversation with a loved one, someone who needs to hear it. Because the more people we have understanding and applying these simple ideas to their life, the more lights will be shining in this world. Have a blessed start to your weekend, and we will chat next time in the huddle.
Take care, GT. Thank you.